This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter and welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. You thought I forgot about doing on this days, but, you know, I've done a lot of things. But anyway, it's on this day. And on this day, April 23rd, 1950, the Detroit Red Wings won the 1950 Stanley Cup in double overtime. But that's not the whole story about the 1950 Stanley Cup Finals. Yes, Pete Babando scored in double overtime, and that wouldn't be the last time, or the first time, that a player would score a Stanley Cup winning goal in double overtime. Anyhow, so it's the 1950 season. 6 teams were in the NHL at that time. Imagine a league with 6 teams. In baseball, you would have 5 such leagues because they have 30 teams. Basketball has 30. Basketball would be kind of the same way, but they have 6 divisions and 5. All that. Anyhow, so the 1950 Stanley Cup playoffs happened. The Rangers would take care of the Montreal Canadiens, the vaunted Montreal Canadiens, in 5 games to reach the final. And Detroit needed Game 7 to take down the Toronto Maple Leafs, who were the 3-time Stanley Cup champions at that time. People forget that the Leafs repeated back in the 40s. Detroit got revenge for the Leafs sweeping the Red Wings twice in that 3-year span. So anyway, the Rangers and Red Wings were ready to battle. And all that. Game 1 was in Detroit at Olympia Stadium, which saw the Red Wings win 4-1. With goals by Joe Carvey, George Ski, Jim McFadden, and Jerry Couture. The Rangers countered with Buddy O'Connor scoring. The Rangers had Chuck Rayner in net. Detroit had Harry Lumley. No Terry Sawchuk? You'd be surprised. Anyway, this is where troubles happen. So anyway, as people should know, the New York Rangers had some very big issues with arena sharing. Madison Square Garden, and for context, this is not the Madison Square Garden that the Rangers play in now, because this Madison Square Garden that happened in 1950 was a predecessor to the current MSG. So, the third Madison Square Garden from 1926 to 1968, when the Rangers played, had problems because they would also have the very famous Barnum and Bailey circus when it was popular and not for animal cruelty. So unfortunately, because they couldn't turn things around from a circus to an NHL game quickly, that meant that the Rangers were basically booted out of their own arena, if you will. So the Rangers would have to play home games elsewhere. So they decided to play games 2 and 3 at MLG, Maple Leaf Gardens, and have the Rangers be the home team. And then the other 4 games would be played at Olympia Stadium. Kind of sucks because it's like, put the first 2 games in Detroit, put the next 2 at Maple Leaf Gardens, and then go Olympia, Maple Leaf Gardens, Olympia. Now, because Detroit knew how to win at Maple Leaf Gardens, they tried to do what to do. Red Wings would lose to the Rangers 3-1. Patty Egan scored 1, Edgar Laparty with 2. Jerry Couture would score his second goal of the finals for the Red Wings. Game 3 at Maple Leaf Gardens saw the Red Wings with the shutout. Lumley did it. Jerry Couture, George Ski, Sid Abel, and Marty Pavlich did it. So after 3 games, the Red Wings were up 2-1, and then all 4 games, the rest of the way, would be at Olympia Stadium. Red Wings knew they were fucked. Now, here's the thing about the Red Wings in 1950. Gordie Howe was around for that time, but Gordie Howe didn't play in the finals. How? Well, simply put, it was because of one simple thing, and that was the fact that he got hit into the boards accidentally by Teeter Kennedy. His skull fracture was huge. They had to do an operation to relieve the pressure in his brain. Gordie Howe would kind of wouldn't be the same. He had the facial tic and all that. However, Howe still played 26 years in the NHL in his career. He still played after that. So imagine if that ruined Gordie Howe's career, that hit. Regardless, the Red Wings were up 2-1. But the Rangers were not going away yet. After Detroit got Ted Lindsay, Sid Abel and Marty Pavlich scoring in regulation. Buddy O'Connor, Edgar LaPrade, and Gus Kyle for the Rangers. It went to overtime, and at 8:34, Don Bones Raleigh put a puck behind Lumley, and the Rangers won the game 4-3 to split the first 4 games. Game 5 also went to overtime. Dunk Fisher, the immortal Duncan Fisher, scored for the Rangers, make it 1-0. And with 2 minutes left of the third period, it looked like Chuck Raynor was going to get a big shutout, and the Rangers were going to take a 3-2 series lead. But hold on, not so fast. Ted Lindsay put up a goal to make it 1-1. Off to overtime. But faster than, you could say, Superman, and faster than the 8:34 of the first overtime period in Game 4, Bones Raleigh did it again at 1:38th overtime, and the Rangers were going to win. They were up 3-2. It was like, holy crow, the Rangers were going to win the Stanley Cup possibly. I mean, you go to overtime, Rangers, victory time. Here's victory time. Well, the Rangers knew what to do. They had to take down Lumley at the first option. And they had a 2-0 lead in the first period on goals by Alan Stanley and Dunk Fisher. Red Wings countered with Ted Lindsay and make it 2-1. And then Petri Lund, the Finnish player from Finland, scored a 6th goal of the postseason to make it 3-1. So Petri Lund was huge. He scored 5 goals against the vaunted Montreal Canadiens. So it's 3-1, and it looked like the Rangers were on their way to the Stanley Cup. Not so fast. Sid Abel and Jerry Couture scored, making it 3-3. Tony Leswick for the Rangers made it 4-3, which is ironic because Leswick, 4 years after that, would actually be a hero for the Red Wings in overtime, in a Game 7 overtime. Unfortunately, Ted Lindsay and Sid Abel scored. Red Wings escape a 5-4 win, forcing Game 7 on this day, April 23rd. The Rangers went up fast. They started off 2-0. Alan Stanley and Tony Leswick scoring for the Rangers. However, the Rangers were undone by their own lack of discipline as 2 power play goals, one by Pete Babando and another by Sid Abel, made it 2-2. Buddy O'Connor did score for the Rangers to make it 3-2, but the Red Wings got one by Jim McFadden to tie it at 3. And then overtime beckoned. It was huge. Game 7 overtime. Winner take all. No going back. And then all of a sudden, I think Bones Raleigh and a few other Rangers hit posts behind Harry Lumley. Unfortunately, seconds later, Pete Babando, with his 2nd goal of the finals, much less Game 7, scored to make it 4-3. And so at 28 minutes of overtime, Pete Babando scored, and the Red Wings won the Stanley Cup. They got to parade it on a table. And the Rangers would be ticked off at themselves. The Rangers did everything in their power, and they should have won Game 6. What is it with Rangers and blowing 2-goal leads in the Stanley Cup Finals? I mean, I'm part of Blue Shirt Underground Radio, and in 2014, everyone was like, wow, what the heck is going on with this game? Because, the Rangers went to the finals and then kept blowing 2-goal leads, and then they lost the Stanley Cup Finals in 5 games. This is akin to 1950, when they had it in Game 6 and 7, they had 2-goal leads. And all that, like twice. Twice in Game... Oh, was it twice? Or no? Yeah, once in Game 6, one in Game 7. So anyway, Sid Abel got the Stanley Cup. Now, before I get to the Rangers stuff, let's get to the Red Wings. Here's who got their names on the Stanley Cup. George Key, Max McNabb, Sid Abel, Jim McFadden, Larry Wilson, Ted Lindsay, Gordie Howe, Jimmy Peters Sr., Pete Babando, Marty Pavlich, Joe Carfetti, Jerry Couture, Steve Black, John Wilson, Jack Stewart, Claire Barden, yes, that was a man, Red Kelly, Leo Rice, Lee Fogelin Sr., Marcel Pronovo, Al Dewsbury, and Harry Lumley in net. Doug McKay and Gordon Haiti actually did qualify for the Cup, but they were left off. So anyway, the legend of Terry Sawchuk was that Sawchuk played 7 games for the Wings in 1950 because of Harry Lumley's injury. He was not available for the playoffs because of the fact the AHL team in Indiana was going for the Calder Cup, which is the AHL championship. So they went with Harry McQuiston as the spare goalie. His name was engraved on the Stanley Cup, but never put in the NHL. But when the NHL needed a redo in 1958, they removed his name. Good question. So anyway, yeah. So Terry Sawchuk could have been the backup or spare goalie, but because of the whole thing with the AHL title, so the Red Wings won both the AHL and NHL title, which was pretty good and all that. Yeah, some great names. But, however, I'm a little biased towards the Rangers knowing. Well, the Red Wings would go back to the Stanley Cup in 1952, and with Terry Sawchuk being a regular, and the fact that Terry Sawchuk was just that damn good, and so were the Red Wings. The Red Wings won their semis and finals both in 4-game sweeps. In fact, they didn't give up a goal on Detroit Olympia, that's their home arena, ice at all. But people did not foresee how the Red Wings would be a dynasty in the 50s and then basically not win a cup till 97. But nobody, I think, realized how bad the Rangers would have been after this. So between the 1950 Stanley Cup Finals and the 1971 first round against the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Rangers won 0 playoff series in 21 years. 0. That is the 4th longest streak in NHL history in span of seasons that a team has not won a playoff series at all. The Rangers from 1950 to 71 trail only the Florida Panthers, who before the 2022 playoffs had only won one playoff series, the 96 conference finals against Pittsburgh. They hadn't won a Stanley Cup playoff round. They also ahead of them are the Jets/Coyotes, who between 1987, when they beat the Flames in the playoffs, and 2012, when they beat the Hawks in the first round, didn't win a playoff series. In fact, they went to the Cup playoffs 12 times in those 20-plus seasons and couldn't make it. And the only other team ahead of the Rangers, the Islanders. From 1993 to 2016, they didn't win a Stanley Cup playoff round. So, yeah, streaks are made to be broken, but longevity is huge. I feel so bad for the Ranger fans of the 50s and 60s not getting a playoff round. I mean, yeah, you win a playoff round, you go to the Stanley Cup Finals, but still, to make the playoffs is one thing, because the Rangers had bad luck with that, so that's not good. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond, I do.